The Hollywood version of the Enfield Poltergeist is a clean battle between good and evil, famously led by demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. In reality, the Warrens were barely involved. The actual historical record of the case is a dense, messy collection of conflicting accounts that refuse to point toward a single tidy answer. Yet despite this massive archive of data, the experts who spent the most time inside that house walked away entirely divided on what they actually saw. The case has settled into a 50-year intellectual gridlock regarding the nature of evidence and the definition of truth. The stage for this conflict was 284 Green Street, a functional piece of architecture in 1970s North London. It was rented by Peggy Hodgson, a reserved single mother of four who found the sudden media attention and the presence of paranormal investigators deeply unwelcome. She was a terrified woman stuck in a property she couldn't leave because she had nowhere else to take her children. The baseline reality of Enfield is a highly vulnerable family trapped in a stressful domestic crisis. The disturbances began in an August night in 1977, witnessed not by investigators or enthusiasts, but by the police. Constable Carolyn Heaps filed a formal written statement documenting a heavy chair moving across the bedroom floor on its own. She was a trained officer, noting a physical fact she could not explain. Then came the audio. Investigators recorded 11-year-old Janet Hodgson producing a whispering, low, rasping voice that called itself Bill. This voice claimed Bill died in the house of a hemorrhage, sitting in a specific chair in the living room. Researchers later verified this exact information with Bill's surviving son. In 1977, there was no public record an 11-year-old girl could have accessed to find those details. The Society for Psychical Research spent hundreds of hours in the house, documenting physical phenomena like temperature drops, flying objects, and furniture shifting in full view of witnesses. A police officer's testimony and the transmission of unguessable historical trivia form a perimeter of facts that are difficult to explain away. However, this mountain of evidence contains a documented flaw. In later life, Janet Hodgson admitted that she and her sister faked certain things. The investigators themselves recorded instances where they caught Janet bending spoons and attempting to move objects with hidden strings. Even the most famous photograph of the case, Janet seemingly levitating, follows the physics of a child jumping off a bouncy 1970s spring mattress. Academic critics pointed out that the investigators allowed the children to dictate the terms of the investigation, resulting in a lack of rigorous control measures. They also highlighted a massive psychological vulnerability. Lead investigator Maurice Bross had recently lost his own daughter and was actively searching for proof of an afterlife. Two children staging a haunting for adults who were desperate to believe is a psychologically coherent explanation that accounts for nearly the entire case. This creates a timeline trap. A girl faking things later does not explain what a police officer saw on the first night, but there's also the contamination trap. Once undeniable fraud is introduced, all other ambiguous evidence becomes permanently tainted. The initial physical evidence is too strong to easily dismiss, yet the verified fraud is too prevalent to blindly track. Beyond the data points, there is the human collateral. Janet Hodgson is now in her late 50s. She maintains that while she faked certain things, other experiences were genuinely unexplainable, and that the entire 14-month circus damaged her childhood. The adults in her life turned a family's fear into a media spectacle and a battleground for competing academic egos. Regardless of the cause of the disturbances, using an 11-year-old girl's terror to sell books and television rights for 50 years is a straightforward ethical failure. Today, 284 Green Street is not a museum. It is just a residential property where a new family lives their daily lives. The audio tapes and witness statements still exist to be debated, but whatever truth existed inside those walls remains locked in 1976.